So you get the light there. We are now recording, so you're all set. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Diana Brown. This is the Madaket Area Plan Work Group. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bill Greeter. Who's muted?
Aye.
Bob Kucharvi.
Aye.
Lars Soderberg.
Aye.
Peter Haffenreffer.
Aye.
David Madigan.
Aye.
Kitty Potchman.
Aye.
Emily Molden.
Aye.
Michael Maynard.
Aye.
Maureen Phillips. Maureen, you're muted.
Yes, I'm here from the EDC.
Thank you. And Bruce Mandel.
Aye.
And if we have others join us, then we'll announce them as they come in. This is an open meeting of the Madaket Area Plan Committee. It's being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. This should be the only meeting we will have to have like this, since he is lifting all of the emergency and COVID restrictions as of May 29th. I think you know that. That order, posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to convene remotely so long as public access to deliberations is reasonably provided. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Leslie Forbes has joined us. Hi, Leslie. Materials provided to members for the meeting or provided during the meeting are, unless otherwise noted, available on the town's website. During the meeting, I'll introduce agenda topics and speakers. Please remember to mute your Zoom audio until your name is called. Direct comments and questions through the chair to avoid crosstalk. After committee members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must raise their hand via the icon on the bottom of the screen. Bill Greeter, as the moderator, will inform me and unmute the member of the public wishing to speak. When acknowledged and unmuted, please state your name. You will be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote of the committee members. With that said, we will move on to the meeting. I'll officially call this meeting, this first official meeting of the Madaket Area Plan Work Group to order at 4:06. Have you had a chance to see the agenda? I just emailed it out to you in case you hadn't found it on the town's website. In case you haven't, I'll just quickly review it. We are going to talk about the high-level project approach for the Madaket Area Plan, the roles that are needed. I'd like to make some initial assignments of people to those roles. If we have time, we will discuss other businesses needed. And Emily, I was thinking about you and that particular topic with the consultant's report, or consultant project, if you have time to do that, and then we will adjourn. I also put time limits on us so that we can kind of move through this. And as I warned you via email, this was going to be more of a process meeting than a content meeting. And I know while it's extremely tempting to want to dive in and solve all of Madaket's problems today, we are not going to. But what I'm hoping is that we agree on a project approach and can use that as our template for going forward. So are there any changes or adjustments to the agenda? Okay, then let's go. Project approach. What I am thinking, and please, this is my thoughts and I would very much like your input on this. There are 9 chapters of the area plan. So we know we have to focus on those 9 chapters. There are also other things that we need to talk about. One being the boundary definition of exactly what's in and out of our area plan boundary. And we also have other key topics that we care passionately about that are not necessarily a chapter heading. So coastal resilience being one example of a topic. And so what I'm thinking is that some of these key topics will cross multiple chapters. And so while we don't necessarily have to start by mapping the grid of how every single topic and chapter interlocks, I think that if we start on the chapters and at the same time have teams starting on the chapters and at the same time have teams starting on some of those key topics, we can figure out the major intersections and where we want to focus our time. I'm thinking that this will be an iterative kind of process, and it will start, I think the easiest way to start is that each team will create an outline of what they think is in their chapter or what they think is in their topic. And that will help guide us, and it will also help us to think, to not have everybody overlapping. I think the more that we can stay focused on the individual responsibilities and projects, then maybe we can be the most efficient with our time. My thought would be that the teams could work, a chapter team, for example, could work offline in between area plan work group meetings and flesh out some of the details, do the homework, talk to other people. We can figure out what the individual work plans need to look like, and then report back at future meetings. And as we start to get some meat on the bones of these outlines, I think we could more or less devote each meeting to one of the chapters or one of the topics. And again, not that we will finish a chapter in one meeting, but rather that we will get consensus or identify areas that still need work on each chapter, and will help us flesh out this outline. So I view our area plan as we start with a simple outline and it continues to get built up and grows as we do the work. Does that seem to make sense? Okay, I'm seeing nodding, okay. Thank you. And I think that there is a balance between trying to cover absolutely everything and writing the perfect thesis and getting the job done. Bruce sent an email out to all of us a week or two ago talking about the need for urgency, and I couldn't agree more, because our current area plan is 15 years old. And while it has been extremely helpful to get a lot of things done to help preserve and protect Madaket, it's a little, it's missing a whole lot that we didn't know about back in the early 2000s. And so I think that, perfection can be the enemy of good in some cases. And so we have to keep a balance between what are the key things that we really need to address and need to be sure we've at least got directional statements in the area plan or something that will help guide future groups and future zoning and future HDCs and everything else. And what's, and what can we actually put in that's prescriptive and helpful that will last for another 10 or 15 years. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, is to try to figure out how to do that in some reasonable period of time and have it be useful. But I think this is a great group of people, and you've all got different areas of expertise, and this isn't even everybody. So I think that we have a reasonable chance of covering all the bases in a very comprehensive manner that we can all be proud of. So, and then also on process, I'd like your thoughts about how often does this group meet? And my preference would be is that we set up a prescribed time and do it probably monthly. Maybe we skip some months here and there when it's summer and we're all crazy, or holidays or something. But I'm thinking that if we could set up a standing monthly meeting, that will help us tremendously in terms of getting a meeting room organized, managing our schedules, and just trying to get the work done. So I guess I'd like your thoughts about that kind of a meeting schedule. Does that make sense? A monthly meeting schedule with work group sub-teams in between? Okay.
Ethan Devine will be joining us in a moment.
I have a question.
Hey, Ethan. Yes, Bruce.
Thank you.
appears that the requirement to participate as open meeting law um, is a bit of a constraint in terms of, I would think, small group meetings, uh, team meetings or whatnot like that. And I was wondering how that plays into this. The reason I'm asking is, you know, I was involved in the single-use plastic bylaw, and the town created a work group to implement it. And some of the people on the call, as a matter of fact, today were on that work group and still are on the work group. But we were able to work offline as groups, as teams, uh, without the constraint of the open meeting law, because it was a work group. And the open meeting law did not and does not apply to it. So I'm wondering if we're going to proceed, and as some of you know, I've been compiling a lot of thoughts and data that we've been downloading onto the Google Drive that hopefully we can share with each other. And I think that's a good way for the teams to correspond. But I'm wondering, does anyone know how this is going to work if the open meeting law pertains to this group, which according to my read is not a public body? And I'm wondering if the open meeting law even pertains to it. But if it does, should we be forming work groups to deal with the chapters?
Yes, I think we form informal sub-team work groups, whatever we want to call them, to deal with the chapters. Those groups report out to this meeting, which is an open meeting. And we have been told by the planning department that we have to run this as an open, per the open meeting laws. I'm thinking, you know, God bless the people who want to spend Friday afternoon sitting, listening to us talk. So I'm thinking it's not going to be a huge crowd of public participation, but it still means we have to pay attention. But I do think the side meetings don't have to be open meetings, and the documents and so on with them. Bill, did you raise your hand?
So when I originally went through Erica to start this all rolling, because we were told we had to proceed in this manner, initially our agenda called this group Madaket Area Plan Committee. And incorrectly, I think we actually changed the agenda because we were thinking of ourselves as a workshop. So my thought is that if we settle on Fridays as the time frame or whatever it is, that those posted meetings will be the committee. And that will allow these small work groups to work independently and then come back and share their information in open session to the committee. And any documents that the work group uses would be loaded into the published town meeting notice. And so we would meet that letter where in the very verbiage in the beginning, it says all of the information for this meeting is shared publicly. So I think it's how we can do what Bruce is talking about and still meet the mandate that NPECD has given us that we have to follow.
Bill, if we're going to use the Google Drive as we have in the past to share information and post items and amend them and make comments on them, does the public need to have access to the Google Drive, or is that would be something that's reserved for the use of these work groups?
I believe it would be strictly for the work groups to be able to use it as a library per se, and not have to be transporting back and forth on the internet mega volumes. And then when that work group comes to the committee, if they use, for example, the dimensions or the border footprint, then that document would be published along with our meeting notice, and then it would be shared with the public then.
I think that could be workable.
Bill, I don't know if you noticed I raised my hand via the icon because I'm not using my camera. And I just wanted to say the NPEDC, the assumption made by the NPEDC is to work as all of you have mentioned. So just to let you know that.
Thank you. So given what I just talked about is the project approach, and it looked like you were nodding your heads, then what I'd like to do is just do a short 5 to 10 minute brainstorming list of what you think are some of the key topics that we should make sure that we include somewhere in the plan. And I don't want to discuss them. I don't want to debate whether or not they're important or try to solve them. I think more just like phrases of listing them, like sewer coming to Madaket as an example. So something that's not a chapter heading. Let me just refresh you on what the chapters are. So in case you're wondering, chapter 1, goals and objectives. 2, land use. 3, housing. 4, economic development. 5, natural and cultural resources. 6, open space and recreation. 7, services and facilities. 8, circulation and transportation. And 9, implementation. So just not to put you on the spot, Peter, but since you did volunteer that you were interested in sea level rise, I would call that a topic. So does anybody else have a topic?
Bruce has his hand up, then Lars, second.
Bruce?
Thank you. For those of you that don't know, I am a participant in the Madaket Advisory Board of the HDP, and I've been doing this for several months. And in reviewing the plans for the proposed projects in Madaket, some of the more tender subjects that we're dealing with are the very large massing of homes that are replacing smaller structures. It's controversial. We're dealing with solar panel applications because the town has no solar panel bylaw, and it's functioning on something that Linda Williams said she wrote many, many years ago. That's in a document called Building with Nantucket in Mind. The solar panels we've reviewed recently, we've been told to ignore that and just review them and discuss them. And what we're seeing is that Building with Nantucket in Mind wants us to use ground arrays when possible. All of the applications want to be roof.
Excuse me, Bruce, we're not supposed to be discussing the issues. We're brainstorming a list of topics.
Okay.
So I got solar panels and massing of houses as 2 that you mentioned.
Okay, rules and boundaries.
Okay. And boundaries, what do you mean by boundaries?
I guess that's a little bit broad term, but what I'm finding is that when people submit applications, they are disrespecting the boundaries and the setbacks, and the fact that neighbors are not being properly notified.
Okay, great.
Lars is next.
Lars?
Yeah, in no particular order. It goes hand in hand with the sewer lines, with zoning, parking, and then water quality, both saltwater quality out in the harbor and freshwater drinking.
Those are good ones. Okay. Does anybody else have any? This doesn't have to be exhaustive, by the way, because we're certainly going to think of others as we go through this. I just want to try to get a starting point.
Ethan Devine has his hand up.
Ethan.
I don't know how to phrase it, but something having to do with all the open spaces in Madaket and the different jurisdictions they're under. The different conservation organizations that are in charge of the different plots of.
Is it the ownership that's the issue, or is it?
Know yet how what would come up? Not the ownership. I'm just thinking about the general character of Madaket as being, I feel like integrity of what I think of, the Western Moors as being one of the most important open spaces on the island. And I'm not sure, I think sometimes it gets thought about as the area behind the dump. But it's really, really beautiful open space that I just want to be thoughtful about. But I know exactly where that goes. I just want to tag it.
Well, that might just be chapter 6, open space and recreation, or it might be chapter 5, natural and cultural resources. But yeah.
Michael Maynard is next.
I think this probably slips into a number of the established categories, but it's the landfill, period. I mean, it covers so many areas: water quality, aesthetics. It's not clear whether it's going to stay open or closed. It has a huge impact on us from so many different dimensions that I'm not sure how we tackle it, but that's a big one, real big one to me.
David Madigan has his hand up next.
Just in terms of economic development, which I guess one of the chapters, I mean, I think there's a host of issues there about what kinds of enterprises should be in Madaket, if any. There was that push a few years ago to build a recreational club where the tennis courts were and so on. So just that is a general topic I think that should be on the list.
That's a good one. Michael?
Unmute, Mike.
Another, I think, again, it kind of covers several areas, but it's the Madaket Land Trust. Is understanding it, how it operates. I think it's less than transparent in some respects. And I think it's something that we need to understand better. And hopefully out of this plan, come to some alignment with them in terms of what our future goals are.
Okay. I'm just looking at a list that Charlie Stott sent a while ago. He mentioned paper roads. He also mentioned beach driving restrictions, which may not be an issue because I think that's already been determined as a town issue, but I'm not sure. Let's see, Bruce already mentioned swimming pools. So I think that covers everything from limitations to drainage and everything else. Okay. Any other hot buttons, or have we got the big ones, at least for a start?
Peter.
I think Bruce might have mentioned it in an email about the planting of invasive species. I'm not sure if that was covered again in something someone just mentioned or not, and I also don't know if that falls into any of these categories, natural resources or something.
Probably where it would go. I don't know. You want to come take all the poison ivy out of my yard?
Rent a goat.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's a start. And so even though that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-ish topics, plus the boundary, plus the 9 chapters. So I guess what I'd like to do is to see if there are any people willing to own or to be part of it. You don't have to own it. You could just be part of a chapter or a topic, and we could maybe start to form groups. Some of our subgroups might be one person, and some might be multiple people, not all of whom are here. And we might also include other resources, you know, other town departments or other conservation groups or so on.
Diana, just for the record, Dave Madigan had to leave the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
4:28.
What about if I call your name and you tell me what you're most interested in doing? Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we start on chapters? Goals, let's see, Bob, what would you be most interested in?
I think it would make sense for me to go housing because I'm already on the Madaket Advisory Board for HDC. So I see what's coming through.
That's wonderful. Okay. Are there any topics that you'd like to focus on?
Swimming pools especially.
Okay.
Sort of my pet thing over the years.
Why don't we try, you know, just try to keep it for everybody to a couple of 2 or 3 items, and that way hopefully it's not too much. And if we have something that's an orphan, then we're going to get to it later. Thank you, Bob. Lars.
Yeah, I'm quite interested. I'm not sure which area it falls under, but I'm very interested in, you know, parking, which that I don't know where that falls under.
I think that would be under circulation transportation.
Okay.
I didn't hear what he said. What was it, Lars?
Parking, parking in Madaket. I'm very interested in, well, the other 2 topics I mentioned earlier, with upcoming, figuring out the zoning with sewer coming in, which changes everything, and then water quality. And I don't know where water quality falls under either, but
Natural resources.
Yep.
That's probably the best spot. And I think zoning is going to come in both land use when we talk about it there, and it's also going to be in implementation when we start to think about implementation recommendations. And implementation is probably going to be all of us. So maybe we won't assign anybody to implementation right now because we can't even get to that until we do everything else anyway. All right, thanks, Lars. Leslie. You're muted, Leslie.
I would like land use.
Okay.
And I would think pools might come in there as well.
That's probably a good idea.
And I was also thinking circulation.
Okay.
Particularly as it pertains to emergency and coastal flooding. And, how are we going to get out of here when we flood?
Yeah. Good point. And since David said that you would know what he would be good for, where would we put David?
David.
Didn't he say Leslie would know? He did, right? Yeah.
David, my husband?
No, David Madigan.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Oh, he did, huh? Well, give me a minute to think about that.
Okay, we'll come back to you.
Thank you.
All right, Michael?
I would say land use, landfill zoning, those three. There's a lot of overlap, obviously.
I think we would put landfill under services and facilities, for lack of a better spot.
Well,
I don't know. Where else would it go?
Yep.
Well, really, I think that's a big question, because if it turns out that the town decides to close it, zoning is going to be a very big issue.
Yeah.
In terms of what happens to it. It's a large piece of land.
Yeah.
Michael, you may remember that the town passed a solar overlay district.
Right.
All 92 acres of the landfill, and the intent was that it would become a large solar ground panel array once the landfill is no longer used for waste management.
Bruce, while you're talking, why don't we ask you what you would like to do?
Well, I've already posted 2 workbooks on Google Drive, one about the boundary and one on thoughts to share with people on goals and objectives.
So why don't we put you on the boundary team?
That's fine. I mean, that's basically written in draft. My most important thoughts kind of dovetail Michael Maynard's. Land use, zoning, landfill, and a lot of the subjects we've talked about fold into that. Solar, pools, massing, all fall into that.
Okay. Thank you. You know, David Madigan brought up the what kind of enterprises and commercial development. So why don't we put him on economic development? Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
I would also say from previous conversations within the landfill might be of interest to him.
Okay. Great. Peter.
The 2 that jump out at me are the issues related to the public's potential for the public septic system and water quality. But I'm not sure if as you've been talking, you're putting septic under zoning, or if there's a separate discussion that happens around just septic generally, you know, the what if it comes in, or Bruce's last email was a little disconcerting about the process kind of moving forward faster than any of us can handle, I guess is how I would say it. So that seems to be a pretty high priority.
It seems like septic and sewer would be a main, just as landfill might touch multiple spots. I think I would still stick it in services and facilities.
Yeah, and I'm saying septic, and I really mean sewer, the public sewer coming in, and what that means. I shouldn't say septic, it's really the sewer issue.
Yeah, well, some of us will always be on septics because I can't believe they're gonna run sewer out to Little Neck or Blue Heron Way, but.
No. But it just has, as Bruce pointed out, it has such massive implications if and when that happens to everything. So. I think that would be something I'd be interested in being involved with, and water quality as well.
Okay,
those 2.
Great. So water quality, I think, would go under natural and cultural resources, maybe?
Yeah.
I think that's where you did it before. Okay, thank you.
And where are you putting sewer? And
I think under services and facilities.
Oh, there, yeah.
Diane, suggestion to put town water in that same
It's that same group, yep.
bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point, there's going to be a joint effort where one goes, the other will go.
And in the 2009 plan, it is under services and facilities. Water quality is
Okay.
under 7.7.
I guess that could be one of our things, is go back and look at that and make sure that we're consistent, I guess, to some degree.
Septic is there too.
Let's see, who did I not get to? Ethan, I haven't asked you. Although you actually told me earlier via email, you said natural and cultural resources and open space and recreation.
Yeah, 5 and 6.
Okay. Kitty.
I'd be interested in working on the open space and recreation chapter.
That makes sense.
Yes. And if needed, the natural and cultural resources as well.
Okay. And Emily.
I think probably land use as it relates to zoning, and certainly water quality, maybe sewer, wherever that all crosses over.
Okay. Great,
and I
thank you.
Certainly could help with open space as well if necessary.
Great.
Diana?
Yes.
Just for the group's knowledge, for those that aren't on the NCA board, I think we don't want to overlook the valuable input that Emily's going to have as the project overseer of the Madaket build-out analysis, which we just voted to fund, and she's going to be at the helm at that. So that input is going to be very valuable for this process.
It's going to be extremely valuable. In just a minute, Emily, I'll ask you to speak about it, because I think that it's going to be a great project. And we're so fortunate to have you helping drive that. So thank you. I think so far then we've got at least one name on everything, which is a good start. For goals and objectives, I think that's something that would be interesting maybe to have everybody's thoughts about. You could go back and look at the previous area plan, but go back and look at that, and maybe we could by email brainstorm a little bit on what we think the goals and objectives of this plan are. Because I think one thing that a couple of you have already said, which is also dear to me, is maintaining the country feel of Madaket and the small scale buildings and the beautiful open space that we have. That's why we're here and we're not in town. So I think that, you know, we can think about what we want this plan, what the goals of this plan are. And I think that that will help keep us focused on what we do as well. One other role that we need on this committee is somebody, because the town is not going to do it, is for somebody to take what we'll call the Cliff Notes minutes, like not the he said, she said, every single thing that happened, but maybe the decisions that happened or summaries of, you know, what we discussed or what we agreed on, because we're going to have to publish those and post them on the town website. Does anybody want to volunteer to do that? Bruce, bless your heart. Thank you. I'm kind of taking them for today, but it's hard for me to try to do the meeting and take minutes at the same time. And Bill, could I ask you to please continue your wonderful job of working with the town to schedule, I guess we should talk about our meeting schedule, but to schedule our meeting room and make sure that we've got something set up?
Yeah, sure. On that note, also as you for your segue into deciding meeting time, the reason we were able to secure this Zoom channel, um, as you can imagine, the town has difficulty finding slots for all the committees that need to use the channels. And so they've got multiple accounts. And so we were, Friday afternoon at this particular time was wide open because nobody wants to meet on a Friday afternoon. The good news, I guess, is it's a carrot at the end of the stick. If you do have a meeting that you want to get out on time, and so you make the meeting as concise as possible so you can get out at the appointed hour and not go on. So it lends itself to the workshop section to be even more valuable because that's where all the nuts and bolts are going to go. The agendas are sent to the town. They post them on the town website, and it's going to be under NPECD, which we saw for today's meeting. This recording will go onto the town cloud, and it will be viewable through the town's YouTube section. And so anything that we do ends up funneling back through them. So the Cliff Notes version will certainly meet the bill because people could always go to the actual recording if they needed, detail.
So for meeting time, Bruce, did you have a question?
I just want to remind everybody that there's a channel there on the Google Drive, and as soon as we were appointed, I created, for lack of a better word, some workbooks. One was for goals and objectives, one was for the boundary, and the intent was to let people input thoughts and comments into the workbook so we could share it, parentheses, BRM, my thoughts. And they're kind of a little bit rambling. Janie posted them. I think we posted one of them, the goals and objectives of the boundary, twice, but they're the same. And I think this would be a good way to share thoughts and just edit things, cross things out, say, oh, this is ridiculous, change this. But I think that would really expedite people's time. And I'm perfectly willing to create a workbook for each one of these 9 chapters if you think that would be helpful.
What do you guys think? Should we try? What we could do is we could try it with goals and objectives. So since Bruce has already created a workbook for goals and objectives, instead of doing this by email, then maybe that's what we should do, is between now and our next meeting, we all go into that and try to create what we think are the goals and objectives so that we have something that we can vote on, or maybe not vote on yet, but at least kind of provisionally agree on to get us started for our next meeting. Would that make sense? It'd be an easy way to start and not too painful.
Just beware it kind of rambles because I was posting thoughts as they came to me, and some of them, as you know, Bruce, can be rather esoteric and rambling. So just put a little comment next to it, ha ha, or something.
Can we use emojis, Bruce? Okay, well, let's try that. Personally, while I am a big fan of using Google Drive, I get overwhelmed with it when there's lots and lots of documents. So I think our challenge will be to keep it organized enough so that we can actually find it and make it useful for us. So meeting, do you guys want to try to keep a Friday afternoon like this, a 4 o'clock on a Friday? And we can try to aim for an hour. If we think we have too much stuff to talk about, we'll make it an hour and a half.
Works for me. I'm retired. Every day is Friday.
Some of us work, Bruce. Bill?
What I would suggest is that because we have to post this, from what I could see, there'd be no harm in selecting it, say, once a month, if it's a Friday from 4 to 5:30 is the posting. We can certainly adjourn before 5:30. If we don't have a meeting, we can cancel it. But that will, I got to first check with Erica to make sure that it's down the road, it's going to be okay. And then depending on what the governor does and what the town decides to do on future meetings, if they roll that out and get rid of the Zoom, we will have to get in line for an actual meeting room. And my guess is the same time frame would be the most likely available room if we have to do that. So if we establish a schedule, we can then meld it into whatever mode we have to go to.
Leslie, did you have your hand up? Unmute, Leslie.
Sorry about that. I'm being clunky. A point of information. If the governor, well, the governor's going to remove everything as of June 15, right? So that means all meetings can be in person. Will people still be able to participate remotely if all meetings are now in person? Do we know?
That's a question that the select board asked town council to look into, because several board members want to keep some sort of melding of the two different ways. So they're supposed to be looking into that, and whatever the decision is will affect all committees.
Because it will make our meeting difficult because not everybody's here every Friday on island.
Cocktails at your house.
All right.
Well, I guess we'll have to find out if we can still use Zoom, because you're right, there are a lot of conveniences to being able to Zoom. Otherwise, we won't get everybody. Well, I was just looking ahead, and today's the third Friday of May, but the next 3 third Fridays, I'm not available. So maybe we could look at doing the second Friday. We can try that, and we'll try that for a while and see how it goes. Sure. And so that means our next meeting would be June 11th. And we'll post them then from 4 to 5:30 with a goal to try to end by 5 o'clock when we can. And I don't mean to try to shut people up, honestly, but for today's purposes, I wanted to just try to get us through some of the process so we could get started. Michael?
I just logistics. I would advocate that if it's at all possible, we keep the Zoom option open. I think we'll end up with better attendance on these things, because I know I won't always be able to be on island. I'll do my best, but there are others who may have the same problem. I think if we could advocate now, rather than just getting a notice a week from now that it's on or it's off, we might have a better shot at keeping the option open if it's possible.
Diana, can you just give me 2 more dates, so when I go to Erica, I could try to block out?
June 11th and then July 9th.
Okay.
And then August 13th.
Okay. So we'll start with those.
From a process perspective, I feel like at least we have a basis to get started. I will draft up what I think we just agreed to in terms of who's doing what in places and things that are kind of empty. And then, as Bruce suggested, if you would look at the Google Drive under goals and objectives and add your comments, or edit as you see fit for what you believe our goals and objectives for the Madaket area plan should be. That would be very helpful for our next meeting. And then under the So under the next piece of the agenda is other items is needed, I think, other business is needed. And Emily, could you just give us an update on, or just tell everybody a little bit about the build out plan and what's going to happen?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So I have been working the Nantucket Land Council along with Act Now with a few members of the MCA board and put together an application and a proposal to do a build out analysis of the Madaket area. And we are going to be working with a firm that's up in the Boston area called Principal Group, who have quite a bit of experience doing some planning, design work in communities in Massachusetts and in the region. And what they're going to be doing for us is collecting a lot of data on the current zoning in the Madaket area, the current land use, and what development has taken place. The concern that is going to be addressed really is taking a look at if and when sewer is brought out to Madaket, how that may influence or impact the potential development in the area. Because as I'm sure everyone knows, currently the septic system, local septic system regulations limit the number of bedrooms that a particular lot can have. And when that's eliminated, if sewer is brought out to certain parts of Madaket, there's definitely a lot of concern at the increase of density, dwellings, et cetera, that could result, massing, as was brought up earlier. So what we're going to work with Principal Group to do is a full analysis of the build out potential with sewer in different parts of Madaket, so that Madaket residents can get a sense of what the potential maximum build out will be and what that might actually look like from a neighborhood perspective, so that as you move through this process and figure out what the priorities are for the community in the area, we can consider what options there are in that implementation section, what changes may the Madaket residents want to make to zoning in order to address that before the horse is out of the barn, so to speak. So that's sort of in a nutshell what we're hoping to do. And we, the MCA board just granted the funding to us. The Land Council is going to provide a little bit of funding to it as well. And we're going to meet with the firm, the consultants next week. Preliminarily, we're still scheduling that, and hopefully get started here in the next couple of weeks.
That will give us a lot of great information. In addition to that consultant study and Emily's ongoing input, to the group and the chapters with that input, I think that there's a lot of other input we can get as well. And what we should be thinking about is how do we involve the community? And we should probably think about something, surveys or meetings or area meetings, things that we can do that gets the input of the community so people feel like this is their plan too. And obviously we'll get a variety of opinion, but I think that would be key to our success in getting their input. Bruce.
Very quickly, that was an important point. Surveying of community feelings regarding input into the area plan is kind of required. There are 6 other area plans. I posted them on Google Drive. And my thought was, and I'd like your feedback really quickly on this, if I could extract their chapters regarding the 9 chapters and post them separately. For example, chapter 3, this is what Surfside says. This is what Sconset said. And so whoever's working on that chapter could see what the other area plans had done and what they said. If you think that would be helpful, I'd like to suggest that I can try to do that. The other item, and I don't think it's other business that pertains here, but it's kind of gratuitous. One of our members is working hard to raise some money for a charitable event that is going to be riding bicycles and such things. And it might be nice if folks would help out with that. And if you're interested, let me know.
Okay, are there any other issues? Comments? You guys get a gold star. It's 4:58.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Hi. You get the gold star, Diane.
Done, Diane. Exactly.
Have a great weekend, everybody. And thank you again for your participation in this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank
And
you.
on behalf of the NPEDC, you guys are you're miles ahead in terms of organization, everything. I mean, would that all the area plans are going on like this. So I'm proud of Madaket. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Diana.
Thank you, Diana.